Oh, yes, yes, yes. We went to a place, I don't even remember where it was. It was the first auction. It was in Liberty, New York, maybe?
There was one in Philmont where you bid against yourself for a
And
bowl.
the auctioneer said for me to back off because I was the one bidding.
She bid $2, then she bid $4. He said, no, no, madam, you're bidding against yourself. You don't have to do that.
Everyone laughed, and I brought home 2 plates.
No, they bought a bowl there. It was an ironstone bowl.
That's right. Where did I get the 2 plates?
Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. And I found 2 ironstone plates, which I bought. They were 10 inches, pretty big dinner plates. And I think I paid $2 each for them. So I brought $4 worth of ironstone home. And I thought it was just the most wonderful thing I'd ever found. Welcome to Old Strawberry Hill in Spencertown, New York. We're about 38 miles from the Albany Airport. And we have here an 1807 house, which was recently designated a Federal Historical Site. And its farmhouse has been in the same family before us for almost 100 years.
We've traced the title back to 1792. And even before that, the oral history says this property was owned by somebody named Abner Hawley, who happens to have been a distant relative of mine. He ran a grist mill down by the Punset, but presumably also a farmer. We're Tom Moreland, Olga Moreland from Spencertown, New York. We bought the house that we're in 1995. It was built in 1806. Which was about 7 years before Miles Mason got his patent on ironstone china. Fast forward to 1976, Olga and I got married. We brought 2 groups of objects to the marriage. I had maybe 100 pieces of colored glass. Olga had 2 ironstone plates, but somehow she took one look at my colored glass and said, not for us, not for the marriage. So she wanted to build an ironstone collection. Well, one day in Harper's Ferry, Virginia, we found this little book called White Ironstone by Gene Weatherby, written in 1974, and that told us that indeed there was a whole genre of white ironstone china. So that got us started. We soon found dealers named Florence and Lester Good in Landisville, Pennsylvania. I see we still have their address and phone number in the cover of this book. And then eventually Elizabeth Long in Newtown, Connecticut. And after several visits, Elizabeth Long introduced us to the Derringers, who shared space with her in a Bethel, Connecticut shop. And once we met the Derringers, all hell broke loose.
I mean, we were just ransacking Pennsylvania. They've just opened up a store where they're selling their ironstone. So we went there to see the store. And we bought the Morning Glory bowl and picture there, I think. Which was stupendous. I mean, it's like the most beautiful. It was on the dining room table.
This could be our favorite piece of ironstone, certainly right up there at the top. It's a soup tureen in the Morning Glory pattern by Elsmore and Foster. Only one we've seen that was sort of straight up. Somebody was selling one that was quite tilted years back, but this is really the only one we've seen that's in pretty perfect condition.
You enter through a brand new part of the building. You enter through the mudroom, and now you're in what used to be an external room, which was home to a 1947 Amana freezer, a doorway, a wall that separated the 2 sections that was full of hundreds of thousands of very old and completely raw, bare corn cobs that was used as insulation. Anyway, now we're inside, and we have taken down the wall. We've closed in what used to be an open stairway to a bee and wasp-ridden upper room. We call that the hidden room. And there was a wash basin here for the workers to stay clean during dinner. and a little bathroom, which was so small that it now is mainly a hiding place for some of our ironstone.
Hanging on the wall here next to the sofa is a hook rug showing our house, and there's a coral terrain in the upper corner you see, and blue heron. There's our former beagle there. This was done by a lady in Maine named Connor. We learned about her when we picked up a piece of ironstone in, I think it was Lewiston, Maine, and we saw on the floor, lady had a hook rug of her house, and she came here and looked at the house. We sent her photographs, and she did it.
The floor was built almost directly onto bedrock, and there was a little crawl space that somebody tried to lead the electric line to where it would end and turn to go upstairs, and they got stuck. They got stuck.
We should add that this room here is really a separate building that was connected to the main house at some unknown point in the past, but the house is 1807, we think. This could even be older, given the beam ceilings. We pulled the ceiling down and we found these logs, hand-hewn logs, only on one side of the room, and we had to cover up what was there because it had been replaced. So this room together is the same size as the room upstairs. This ceiling was not so finished. It was a rougher 2x4 sort of ceiling that was put in later. But this is obviously the original ceiling and floor above with very wide board pine. And it looks like it could be 18th century. Oh, I almost forgot. When we were doing windows, we had the windows of this room and a couple of rooms upstairs. So I kept going back to the local lumber yard, which used to have window weeks. If you ordered your windows during those weeks, you would get a significant discount. So I gathered up all my window needs and I ordered 53 windows. This is truth. And when they arrived, they came by in a bus, truck, driven by a seasoned employee of the lumberyard who knew what he was doing. And he said to me, I said, be careful, because you can back up into the snow and you'll slide down the hill and end up in the pond. Oh no, Mrs. Moreland, be well aware that I've been here several times. I know my way around. And he sat down behind the wheel and promptly slid down and landed just short of the pond. And there were a lot of bad words said, and we had to call a truck, like a AAA guy, to come and pull him out. These windows stayed intact, and you can see them now. You're looking at some of them. 53 windows, and he goes sliding down the pond. As far as furnishings, we have here an probably 1840s Pennsylvania milk bench. And then we have some wicker furniture, and we have an old husband. So over here we have one of Olga's closets that she made to accommodate all of the ironstone from the city. And we have soup tureens, lots of covered vegetables, a lot of bowls that we use down here, platters and well-and-treat platters. Let me pull out for you a couple of the things that we think are particularly interesting. This is a very Art Deco looking piece by Clemens & Brothers. Very different from most design of ironstone. And then we have a group of 3 quite delicate covered vegetables. They're early Gothic pieces. The clay body is lighter than most ironstone, but they're quite unique. So here we are in our family room, as we call it, with a beautiful view of the pond behind the house. And here in our cabinet we have 6 soup tureens, some of our favorite pieces. We've got Long Octagon by Clemenson and Young, Curved Gothic by Edwards. We don't know the name of this, but it's a very pretty curving Gothic type pattern. Here we have Coral by Wedgwood. This is Wide Rib, which is probably our favorite pattern, by Furnival. And then this is a Dover. This is a very rare soup tureen in the Dover pattern by J.F. The under tray is the right under tray, but we bought that separately in New Hampshire, I think. But we found the tureen itself in the log cabin in Adamstown, Pennsylvania. Olga spotted it going up and down the rows, and when she spotted it, she sat down on the floor and waited for me to show up. She was going to be sure that nobody else bought it out from under us. It's the only one we've ever seen of that pattern.
Okay, here we are in the shed. This has a beautiful hand-hewn log ceiling. We're going to take this wall down. We're going to make a great big family room. This is the stairway to the hidden room. We'll go up there later. We're going to have a big wall of French windows here looking out onto the pond. The dog is inside. Let's go into the breakfast nook. You can't see me, but I'm going up to what we call the hidden room. I had come to the house with Ruth about 4 or 5 times before I ever discovered this. I noticed in the engineer's report that there were full-size windows. So we came up here. Ruth was thrilled. The place was full of gnats and all kinds of buzzing things and cobwebs and stuff. It turns out it was the grandpa's workroom. Now we're inside this room. This is what's called a floating fire, floating chimney. We're going to have this taken down. It doesn't go all the way down to the basement, so we have no use for this. Now, what's going to happen here is that this is going to become a dormer. We're taking out all the fake walls, and it's going to be a very nice, grand guest room with 2 single beds and French doors with a little sitting porch so that you can sit out here and look out on the pond reading the New York Times. Tom is standing in another part of this dormer room, and this fake wall and the wall perpendicular to it are going to be taken out, and the room is going to be enlarged to its full 18 by 22 size. I visited the house 2 or 3 times thinking that the window that we saw from the outside was the window to an attic. And then one day I heard footsteps, human footsteps, and I said, "What's that?" "Oh, it's the hidden room. That's where Grandpa does his planning. He saves seeds and whatever because he's a farmer." And he had a lot of old Herald Tribunes from 1947 and also a vast collection of flying, buzzing bugs. They were stuck. The stairway here was open. I closed it up. When we came up there, I had been to Jersey for something, and we came to IKEA, which was had already located in Jersey, but not on the New York side. We stopped and I got a magazine that showed a picture of an IKEA room divided in half. It had a seating area, like I copied it, and then it had a sleeping area. 2 beds flanked by they were like double beds, but encased in like nooks. So there you have it. There's also a new window set up facing the pond. I wanted to build a, what would you call it? A little deck porch or a porch so we could sit out and look at the pond. But that was not feasible because we would have endangered this structure, which is extremely old building. And it's central beam or something architecturally important. So we didn't put in a fancy floor. We painted and put down area rugs. We also have a piece of furniture there that stayed with the house. We think that it might be a shaker piece. Although I've been discouraged to think that, I get kind of big-headed about it. Because we shined it up real nice and it has all kinds of architectural details which you don't remember now, but which I put together and said, aha, it must be Amish or shaker.
This is a covered sauce terrain with under tray. the prized Puritan pattern by T.J. Mayer. This is one of our favorite patterns. Well, here we are in the entrance to the house. This is what they call a center hall colonial, about 1807. On either side is a parlor, stairs to the second floor. This bench here we bought in Maine. Various antiques we picked up along the way. The main ironstone is in the closet that we'll show you. This is an original door. They call it, I think, a cross and Bible door. So it's a plank door that would date from the early 1800s. This is a rather extraordinary cheese keep that was made by Cork, Edge and Malkin of Burslem. We drove all the way to Texas to buy this cheese keep from Jim Lord. We traded him for a 19-inch cake stand that we had. So drove all the way down there and drove all the way back, and still only in 2 pieces. So we're here at our center hall closet. This was probably the brightest idea that Olga, our carpenter, Scott Mesick, had in terms of accommodating all the ironstone we brought up from the city. There are a series of 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves that go all the way under these stairs, way back. And we have most of our pitchers, punch bowls, plates, gravies, a lot of stuff. I do have a diagram that tells me what is where, but some of the stuff that's way in the forward, only archaeologists are going to discover, because I have no intention of unpacking all of this in order to get to what's way at the rear there. But the stuff that we use more frequently, show more frequently, is at the edge here. So I'm holding a Morning Glory ewer and a Morning Glory milk pitcher. It's certainly one of our favorite patterns. And on the table here is a very simple Gothic-like compote. But, you know, we have punch bowls, all sorts of different sizes of pitchers and such in here. And it does accommodate a lot of ironstone. When we came up from the city, we had 63 boxes, 63 tubs of white ironstone china. It all went in our barn initially, but as Olga and Scott went around building closets and shelves, now it's all in the house. Here we have a chestnut bowl. It's made by masons. Has the 3 little feet underneath it. We found that in the York Antique Gallery up in Maine.
We walked in, it was kind of one of those gray Maine days that always makes you want to cry in the morning. The sun never did come out, but when I walked into this York Center, they had it on like a pedestal that was just at the height of my chin, and I looked at it, I almost knocked it over.
So here we see the mason's mark on the base of the chestnut bowl. That sort of a mark was used in the 1840s. So here we're in part of the original 1807 house. This would have been the kitchen. We use it as a dining room. We have the hearth looking very 1807 there, with milled marble surrounding. These 2 chairs are lambing chairs that we bought recently. They're probably around 1870. And I guess people would sit on them while they were shearing the sheep. The table's an 1840 cherry table from Michigan. The chairs came with that. On this side of the room we have a stand and shelf with our compotes on them, and our collection of double-sided swirl pieces on the lower part. And then you see in the upper, above the hearth, we have a Parsons cabinet. We usually have our toast holders in there too, but the toast holders are on the way to the convention. In the hearth we have some of the old hardware, including the hook for the original kettle. So here we have a collection of compotes, oval and round. Got ribbed raspberry on top there, Memnon, Paris, I guess that's a Grand Loup, That's an Edwards piece. This, I believe, is J&G Meakin. This is that divided Gothic, framed leaf, cameo Gothic. And we have President. This is the Morley piece here. Early swirl, I think we call that, and here's Sydenham. So as far as we know, the earliest white ironstone pattern is this double fluted swirl. This is about 1843. The Edwards brothers started with this pattern by putting those Boston Mail cartouches on it, but shortly thereafter James Edwards apparently decided to do it in all white. All right, this is the soup tureen in the double fluted swirl pattern, made by Edwards, although this piece is not marked. It's thought that this was the very first pattern made in white ironstone around 1843. So this, we have the double fluted swirl pattern with the Boston Mail's transfer. This Boston Mail series was done by Edwards to publicize the 4 Cunard ships that did a mail run from Liverpool to Boston and New York. There are 3 different scenes you see. This is the gentleman's cabin. There's also a ladies' cabin, and there's a saloon. Charles Dickens took a trip on one of these boats in 1843 and wrote a withering review, essentially saying that the comfort of the ship was nowhere near what was advertised. It's not clear whether china was used on the ships. It's certainly possible because they found quite a lot of it in Boston Harbor that had been apparently tossed off the ship after it had docked.
You're looking at our jelly cupboard, and on the main shelf there's a collection of 3-legged tureens. We're kind of silly about this stuff, but when we first saw that 3-legged butter dish, we freaked out. And lo and behold, a couple of months later, we were going on eBay. That was very popular then. And somebody was selling that 3-legged stew tureen in our favorite pattern, no less. And we bought the stew tureen from a fellow who had just moved his family from somewhere in upper Maine to southern Jersey or something. We got to him at midnight, driving through a snowstorm, and he was so happy to sell. He gave us a Mormon blessing on the way out. That was a nice memory, and they were very sincere, and they loved our ironstone. I was very glad they sold it.
This cheese keep here is one of our favorites. We saw that for the first time at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, before it had been cleaned. It was really brown and quite ugly in a way. Some North Carolina dealer was selling it. So we didn't buy it then. It was for sale for $400. A couple months later, who shows up with it but Jim Kerr and Barbara Brown? They had had it cleaned, and it was gorgeous. So I think we paid $800 for it in its pristine condition. Not marked, and I'm not sure if Carl Gortzig ever identified the vines and the flowers on this, but it's quite ornate. In 1997, we bought the collection of Howard Noble, a gentleman from Connecticut who had passed on. Howard was very fond of collecting the early Gothic shapes and assembled quite a unique collection of Gothic objects. And we bought this armoire to hold the collection. Howard was into rarities more than condition, so he would buy a very unusual piece even if it was chipped, and in that way assembled many items that you just don't see. We might just highlight a few items here. This pattern is actually called 6-panel vertical, I notice in the Derringer's picture book. But it's a unique geometric type shape, sugar bowl and water pitcher. These up top are 3 of our favorite pitchers, very elegant shaped. This is pumpkin primary. This is a primary shape. I don't recall what this one's called, but it's marked Morley, so it's possibly an early Mason pattern that Morley took over. And then this is another rare pattern, inverted diamond, I believe this is called. very dramatic embossment. Again, a very geometric shape. And there are lots of sugar bowls, teapots. We have these wonderful old, early pitchers with them, a very dramatic six-sided shape. This one is Porcelain Française by Ridgway. And this is worth showing as well. The smaller one has a dragon handle and a very elaborate mark. Mason's Patent Ironstone China, Biddle House, Detroit, imported by F. Whitmore. Here we've got a covered syrup. Lily of the Valley is the design. Very high relief. It's made by G. Woolishcroft. We bought it early on in our collecting, probably back in the 1970s even. But it's one of our favorites. The finial seems to be a cornucopia. Okay, we have one other item over here, and this is a crawl space underneath the family room. When we were renovating the house, the workers found this item and almost discarded it. But it turns out it's a fragment of an old gravestone, and you can clearly make out the date, 1776, and the outlines of some of the design that's quite typical of that era. This seems to be the letter S here. Maybe that was the letter A. But the story is that there was a graveyard, across the way from our driveway in the 1770s. And most of those gravestones were moved down behind the local church in the 1930s. But this fragment was left behind, obviously. It's a nice memento. 1776 was a good year. Okay. Here we have, below this board, a cistern. It's a circular laid-up stone, and we'll see how deep it is. Many a broken piece of ironstone has gone down there. So here we have the stack that supports the chimney in the dining room upstairs. Very massive laid-up stone foundation here with some wood support, some hand-hewn cross beams. And over here, one of these cross beams is supported by another trunk. This high relief jug is apparently called Vintage. I'm going by Kathy Hughes' book on 19th century jugs. The mark is consistent. It was the Society of Art's prize jug for 1846, although Kathy Hughes says it was actually manufactured in 1862. Olga, was this the one we bought from Jean Weatherby?
No, it was for sale.
No.
Jean told us about it.
Okay.
She said you have to buy it.
And made by Minton.
It's my favorite piece.
Jean Weatherby said it was her favorite piece?
Yes, she did.
All right, there you
Right
go.
here.
And on the walls we have a collection of Grenfell mats. Wilfred Grenfell was an English missionary who came to Labrador around the first decade of the 20th century, and he established a cottage industry for the Inuit Indian ladies, making these very finely hooked mats, mostly out of silk stockings that were collected from fancy places in Manhattan, Philadelphia, and sent up to Labrador, where they were turned into these mats, which are really very graphic. And there are not a lot of them to be found, but we've managed to find, I guess we've got 9 of them in this room. And they go well with the chocolate brown walls that Olga selected. I'm holding here another one of our collections, this of very finely hooked circular mats. They were made in New England, and we find a lot in Pennsylvania also. And you know, they're really, the ones we buy are very finely done. That's the smallest one, and then you They're just graduated in size, and I'll hold up the biggest one. Very nice colors. Now, in terms of the house itself, it is on the National Register of Historic Places. This is the documentation that was submitted in support of that application. It's called the Daniel and Clarissa Baldwin House, they being the original couple who bought the property in 1806 and built the house either that or the next year, and then raised a family of 10 kids here from that date until 1835, when they sold it to a gentleman named Josiah Shelton, who we think built the fine barn that's across the street. We have one very pretty outside picture of the house I can hold up here. This was taken by Dave Klein in the course of a WICA regional that we had here in 2007. It shows the Great Wall of Olga and the picket fence on top of it. Here we are in the living room. It actually would have functioned as the dining room originally. Two corner cabinets full of ironstone. The one on the left is the white ironstone. It has our covered syrups and syllabub cups, some mugs, plates and pitchers. And then the one on the right here has our collection of hens on nest, all white except there's a yellow base on one of them. Then the rest of the cabinet is our non-white ironstone. This above here is the pinwheel pattern. This polychrome pattern is called number 20. And here we have a Boston Mails sauce tureen, more pinwheel, other Boston Mail, and some Hudson River scenes. This is one of the city of Hudson. This, I would say, is pre-tea leaf that has that little squiggly green line that we think is quite elegant. This is again an original hearth with this milled marble, and we've got 4 pieces of black transfer ironstone in there, Boston Mails, and I think the Vale of Wyoming. And then in the back there, of course, that's an Adriatic foot bath. This is a high relief picture made by Jones and Wally. It's registered in 1842. It's called The Gypsy. It has a uniquely detailed high relief embossment, as you can see. So this is a set of bathroom pieces in the full rib pattern by Pankhurst. 2 sizes of covered potties here, razor box, soap dish, the slop jar, and a foot bath, which is very rare. And then down the floor here we have an 1851 slop jar.
Be a door there, so you can use it for storage?
Just for the cabinet, build a cabinet.
We're up here.
Like a bench, like you.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Tom? Oh, Tom's making movies. Do you love this?
There's another story about the tub that we have upstairs. 503 pounds. Footed, like with little dog feet. And I told my my contractor, and he says, "Are you nuts? 503 pounds? How could you do that? How are we going to get it up the stairs?" And the second question was, when we get it up the stairs, how are we going to turn it around so it stands straight up instead of upside down? So the next day I ordered something considerably lighter, made out of pot. How are we going to get it up the stairs?
All right, here we have sugar pot and a creamer in the inverted diamond pattern. Neither one of these pieces is marked, but according to the Derringer Encyclopedia, the only company that made this pattern was T.J. and J. Mayer. All right, here we are in our master bedroom. Not much ironstone here. There's a the bottom of a Series Thunder mug I see, and a Series bowl and pitcher, but a lot of nice textiles. The hanging quilt is a 1880 or so quilt from Maine. And then we have our collection of Afghans, as you see, on top of the armoire there and in various stacks. I think we have about 90 Afghans. When we bought the house, there was a wall right in front of me, the length of the room, this being sort of a small convalescent room for the lady of the house. So Olga knocked that wall down. We also took out some sort of ugly wainscoted closets that had been built in to restore the room as it was originally. The fireplace we had reconstructed. The mantel piece is original. And some more of our Afghans there. And down below, next to the fireplace, is the bottom of a Series slop jar. This watercolor is of our barn across the street. It was painted by local artist Bill Holland.
And here's the guest room, the main guest room. In here, this is the number 1 guest room. It's going to have 2 single beds in it. The room features a big hole in the wall, which we think needs to be connected to a wood stove. This is above the living room fireplace, but it has never had an actual hearth. Again, there's 3 big beautiful windows here with all the original glass pane. That would be very nice. Fine.
This is a pancake server in the series pattern by Elsborne Foster. We bought this up in Maine from Gary McClure. That day started out poorly. I locked us out of our car and we had to call AAA to unlock us. But then it got much better when we went down to see Gary McClure, and he had quite a few interesting pieces of ironstone, including this very rare pancake server. Here in the what we call the black bedroom, Olga and our carpenter Scott built these 2 wainscoted closets, which contain quite a bit of white ironstone. We'll open the first one up here, and you see creamers, all of which should be turned in the other direction, I'm told. And then, should our plumbing fail, we have an ample supply of Thunder mugs. Here's a Napier sugar bowl, which you don't encounter very much. This is a Prize Puritan sugar pot here, and of course ribbon chain, 2 ribbon chain ones actually. They look like a duplicate. That does happen every now and then. And the covered potties I always like just because they tend to show off their shape, their pattern very well. This is ribbed raspberry. Now this closet, we have up top our high relief mugs, or pitchers rather. You all remember President McKinley. This one is always pretty. I think we've only seen one of them, pineapple pitcher, not marked. And here we have mugs, of course. This is a fluted band one that's very pretty. This is a Canada shape. And we have our soap dishes. This is a Prize Puritan soap dish. And then razor boxes here. There's a Prize Puritan razor box. And there we have covered sauce tureens. Way down the bottom we have the Series toothbrush holder.
Prize
And
Puritan. Prize Puritan sauce.
yes, Prize Puritan sauce tureen here. And some, quite a few waste bowls down below there. Master waste jar in the full rib pattern.
For years, I have been walking around all over the Northeast, and every time we'd walk into something that looked like ironstone, I would try to douse it. And by golly, we found this master waste jar 13 miles from where we live. We walked into an antique store that was mostly furniture, and a very nice, gentlemanly person who was wearing a navy blue jacket with brass buttons. And he was very upset because when I saw this, I ran. It was sitting on his desk, one of his desks. I ran toward it and I squealed. And the man comes out of the back bedroom. Be careful, that's my best table. Who could care less? I didn't. We came back the next day with cash. We're now looking at the first of two rooms, which are the sellers, the people who sold us the house, use these two rooms as a dorm for their grandchildren. And the place was, as you would expect, with preteen. I think there were 8 kids that slept in here or something. There were a lot of them. And you're looking at the rear extension of the house. Downstairs below us was the dining room, which you've already seen. Now here we have 3 windows. When the roof was raised, the original eyebrow windows, there were, I think there were 5 of them, I'm not sure, were exposed for the first time in decades. And they were hidden by the sheetrock when the original windows, which were about 1/3 of the size of the ones that you see, were installed.
Here we have a ewer in the fluted band pattern by J. Wedgwood. Very handsome design.
I just wanted to say a few words about this black stand. This is hand-painted washstand. And on the top sits the larger of 2 sets of bowl and pitcher, or as they call it, ewer. What pattern is it?
Coral.
Coral. And it's by Wedgwood. They're all by Wedgwood. And no one has ever seen the 2 sizes together before. They've been hidden upstairs here.
This is a razor box in the ribbon chain pattern. Don't know when or from whom we bought it, but we think it's quite beautiful. The chain is around the edge, and of course the ribs are both on the top and the bottom. This one is not marked, but I think it's J&G Meakin.
You have here a bed, a painted bed, dated about 1840, which we bought from our neighbor who was selling off the things she had in her basement, and this was her girlhood bed. She slept in it until she was about almost marriageable age, and she was selling it for a mere $15, to which I breathed a sigh of surprise and told her that if this was down in the city, it'd be going hand-painted 1840 bed on Medicine Avenue would be going for far more than $15.
So we're now in our son Bill's room when he was staying here. Has a beautiful view of the pond and the dam. The floors here are also notable. This again was the original part of the house, and very wide, I guess they're white pine floors. It was sort of a shame to cover them up with a rug, but we did to protect them.
We would understand more when you were done, you know.
Oh, yeah, well, you'll see it.
Now look at this. Oh,
I bought it in a rainy, leaky garage. It was pitch black. I thought it was iron. I paid $50 for it.
oh, it's brass.
It's brass. Okay, now we're walking down these teeny weeny little curvy stairs, which are quite scary. These are the back stairs to the kitchen area. You have to put your feet down sideways. Those colonials had really small feet. As I disappear, I'm going down. There's a doorway here where if you peek your head in, you see the side of the huge fireplace. Alan found that this morning. Alan Barrison is here. Here it is. Okay. Bye-bye. Now we're going to round the corner. We're going to turn left. We see a very old wood stove, which used to belong to the family. We see old green countertops, which Bill's leaning against, which are going to be replaced. We're rounding the corner to the left. We see the dining room on the right. We're going to remove this big thing here. We're going to take away. Tom, let's go. Are we ready now? All right.
Here's some old.
All right, this kitchen was actually built around the late 1940s when this house was turned into a bed and breakfast. So you've got 1940 cabinets that we refurbished. The stove here, the black stove, was made in Geneva, New York in 1916. It's a decorative piece, doesn't work anymore, but it was there when we bought the house. And our collection of cake stands is mostly on it. This butcher block here came out of a butcher store in Argyle, New York. What else? We put in the desks on both sides of the central part here, and some new cupboards over there. But otherwise, it's pretty much the way it was when it was built in the late 40s. Over here, you see our collection of true scallop dinner plates that we use when we have parties. This dish rack here was made by a craftsman in Cherry Valley, New York, and these are true scallop plates, mostly Edwards, but a lot of other makers. Down here, but we do have ironstone hidden almost everywhere. This is a very pretty picture here, which is ribbed raspberry by Meekin, and we have this is a Dover ewer. And we see Florentine and Baltic down there and 1851 series. This is a covered butter in the full rib pattern by J.W. Pankhurst. It's not marked, but all the full rib we think was made by Pankhurst. And I'll lift the top off so you can see the liner, which is inscribed in sort of a leaf pattern. And it's got the familiar, I think that's an acorn finial. So here we are in our library. This used to be what they called the birthing room, this area and the room behind this wall, which we use as a laundry room. But we've turned it into a library and office. This is really Olga's space. I've migrated upstairs to another office. And in addition to our books, we've got some ironstone here. Up above we have a graduated set of Gothic pictures. And over on some of those shelves we have our reticulated pieces. A couple of chestnut bowls on the top shelf there. The middle one is by Masons. This is a compote with a black transfer. The view from Ruggles House, Newburgh, Hudson River by William Ridgway. These are 3 covered vegetables in the Dover pattern. The 2 on the ends are the JF version of Dover, and the one in the middle is by Adams, slightly different pattern. And then I'll show you the contents of the 2 closets in the room. In this closet here, we have our teapots and coffee pots, of which there are a few. This is a special one, which is a very early Mason's piece. You can see the Mason's mark there. Here's that Gothic pattern done by Holland and Green. Maybe let's show a piece of dove, these 2 little birds on the top, done by Gelson Brothers, registered in 1869. This is something we found very recently, a cute little diminutive teapot made by Pankhurst & Co. There's something like 50 teapots and coffee pots in here. Now here we have another side cabinet, and this one has our covered butter dishes and a few pancake servers in it. Here's a Virginia-shaped one with a liner inside. Here's a scrolled bubble. Unusual. I don't think that doesn't have a liner, but was made by J.W. Pankhurst. And here's one, probably Alcock, was it? I think that's Alcock, but the base is attached to the under tray. But it's, those as I understand it are quite early, 1840s. There's a series pancake server. And then there's one other pancake. This is a Tuscan pancake server. Who made Tuscan? It was John Edwards, I believe. Here we have a teapot and a sugar pot in the 6-panel vertical pattern made by Samuel Alcock, Hill Pottery in Burslem. They're relatively rare. The Bevan Ernie's Encyclopedia has these 2 pieces and also a pitcher, but you rarely encounter this shape. We're in the pool room, or the map room, but the ironstone highlight is this cabinet of miniature pieces. We've got a set of full rib series. I think that's 6-panel trumpet. Some fig here. Sharon Arch, I see.
Now we're walking into the famous Moorland pool room, where Tom is going to get his ancestral pool table restored, and this is going to be where everybody plays pool. This room features a more ornate fireplace, the same cut marble hearth. It has a Bible box, and the door is made of tiger maple, which may lead us to strip the fireplace to see, the fireplace mantle, to see what kind of wood it is. It may be exotic.
What are these cabinets up?
They were called Parsons cabinets or Bible cabinets or something. And before this was painted by accident, it was tiger maple. What was painted? Tiger maple. It's like a real wood. And the painter painted it when I wasn't looking, so I just didn't say.
This is a ribbon chain teapot made by J.W. Pankhurst. Made around 1853.